Hey everybody, it's Mr. Dow. I'm going to do a brief demonstration of how you might hamburger a quote to use it as support in a topic sentence that you're trying to support. So let's do that by shrinking me and moving over to a sample sentence we could look at. Yeah, basically this is all in regards to writing project number one. What I have here, I have a topic sentence, which I think you guys should have, dealing with what we started with in exercise number two, writing two sides of an issue. I don't care which side you work with this week, but you got to pick one, narrow down the topic sentence, and then support some of your evidence so I can see how it's working. Notice my topic sentence is narrowed down. The original point was marijuana legalization, yes or no, and I said yes and no, and so I have to argue both sides. I can't just say yes, it's good, we should legalize it, or no, it's bad, we shouldn't. So my anti-marijuana argument is this sentence right here. One way that legalizing marijuana will harm society is that its use can seriously impair one's memory. So there's many reasons people might argue against the legalization of marijuana. I'm going to focus just on this in this paragraph, and you saw that if you read through my gathering evidence example. Here I have a support quote, one of the three that I showed you in my gathering evidence. I went over the support quote. It's something I took from a newspaper or website that I thought was fairly reputable. Notice I've got it in quotes, and notice that I have cited it here. That is the last name of the guy who wrote this article, so I'm going to be citing under him. He'll appear on the Works Cited page. The question is, what do I do to bring this quote and connect it, integrating it into the discussion rather than just listing it under my topic sentence? What do I do? Well, the advice is to do those two things, which we've already talked, which are already set up in this page. You have to get a setup sentence, and I think a lot of times it can be a single sentence, and that leads into the quote, and then you do a reconnection discussion where you're discussing details of that quote. I want to do that here with what I have right here, just to show you what I'm talking about. And I will say, just remind you, I do not recommend blending my quotes. I don't think that's a very good idea. I know some teachers teach that. I've found that in general, it leads to more problems than it solves. So why do it when you can just avoid those problems by always making sure you're writing in complete sentences? Okay, so there's my point. I've got a legalized marijuana harm society. Its use will impair one's memory. Here's a piece of evidence for that point. I took this evidence because it was such a long-term study. And when I got down to the actual testing about the study, they said if you smoke marijuana on a daily basis for 5 years or more, you have poorer verbal memory in middle age. So over the course of time, you will have more, according to in this one research study. But it is a pretty comprehensive study. It's pretty good. So now, what do I write between my topic sentence and the support quote? My set of advice was this. I want to treat the quote as evidence or an example or support. That just means I want to write something like, one way to see this issue, or an example of the problem with marijuana, or some illustration. I just want to use the language that lets you know I'm going to present evidence. Next, in the same sentence, really, I want to provide context and validation. Now, that means I want you to believe my quote. I want to put some information in front of the quote that makes you believe it. Why is it worth believing? This is a little bit different for every single quote. Some quotes that are from such an unimpeachable source that I'm just going to mention that. If you have statistics from the Pew Research Center, that's a pretty non-impeachable source. You can just state that according to the Pew Research Center, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you have an author, a writer who is himself an expert of some kind, and you can just say, according to economic expert, blah, 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 and off you go. Now here I don't have that. Like this, for example, this guy Ingraham who wrote the article where I got this quote, he's nobody, he's just a writer. Listing him does not help people believe my quote. Further, sometimes people say, well, let me give you the title of the article. Nobody's going to be convinced about the information in a quote because they know the title of the article. Maybe the publication source, maybe the writer, if he's an expert. Here it's not. What I do have, though, and I look at it, and some of this quote is very validating. I just grabbed all this stuff, knowing that I really want the stuff here that's in bold. But some of this information in my quote actually validates it. I've got a professor. I've got a university study. I've got the length of time that they studied it. And so I'm not going to use all that necessarily, but I'm going to use some of that in my setup because I think it will validate. I think it's legitimate if the University of Lausanne in Switzerland, that's that's a pretty legitimate place where you can do a study. I also think it legitimizes this source or the information that they worked on this thing for 25 years. That's a piece of information. A lot of studies don't have that. So I am going to use that in my setup. I'm going to actually use some of the quote, and then I will cut it out of the quote itself because I don't want to repeat it. So you're not always going to have a quote that has that, but at least I picked such a long section here that I feel comfortable taking some of it, putting it in front of the quote. I'm not going to copy those words, because if I copy the words, I've got to cite it immediately. I'm just going to take some of the basic information out of there and put it in front of the quote. Well, actually, I should just go ahead and do that. Let me just go ahead and do that. So my setup will be this. Setup sentence. Oh, wait, there's one more thing to look at. Also, I want to lead into the quote's main idea. What is the main idea? It should be stated before I get to the quote. Okay, it sounds like a lot, but it's really not that. It's not that much stuff if you just learn to use the right kind of language and get to the point. So here in my setup sentence, I'm going to do all three things. I'm going to treat this as evidence. I'm going to give you some validation information. I'm going to give you the main idea. Main idea of this quote is that it's a big study that showed marijuana will hurt the user's memory over a long period of time. That was the idea. So let's see. So I'll say this. So this is a sentence going to immediately follow the topic sentence. Can't just go topic sentence quote. Can never do that. One way legalizing marijuana will harm society is that its use can seriously impair one's memory. I'll say this idea was confirmed. See, there's my language leading into. I'm treating it as a piece of evidence. You're going to get to evidence by a definitive study conducted at the University of Lausanne in Switzerland over. I don't say just like that. This was confirmed by a definitive study. I'm going to say what kind of study. It's a study on the effects of marijuana usage. On marijuana usage conducted by the University of Lausanne, Switzerland, over a period of 3 decades, nearly 3 decades. Ooh, that's good. Was it nearly? It was close, 25 years. Okay, I think I'm done with my setup sentence. Notice what I have here. Let's bold. Oh no, it's fine. Okay. This idea is confirmed by a definitive study on marijuana usage conducted at the University of Lausanne in Switzerland over a period of nearly 3 decades, which indicated that long-term use of this drug often led to loss of memory. Well, let's see how that sounds. Okay, one way that legalizing marijuana will harm society is that its use can seriously impair one's memory. This idea was confirmed by a definitive study on marijuana usage conducted at the University of Lausanne in Switzerland over a period of nearly 3 decades, which indicated the long-term use of this drug often leads to I'll just say memory loss instead of loss of memory. Small, but it's a little tiny up. Okay, you might be saying, man, shouldn't that be 2 sentences? Maybe it could be 2 sentences. There's nothing grammatically wrong with my gigantic setup sentence, so I'm good with it. But now I'm going to adjust my quote, because I took some of the quote material, put it up here, didn't use those words. I think, though, that I can now eliminate all of this, because I don't think the stuff that I'm not having, that I've lost is really that important. I do have the main stuff, the stuff that validates the quote's authenticity and gets me to the point. So yeah, there I am. So let's talk about what happens. So basically, I've done my setup, and I've got the stuff in front of the quote. Let's talk about what comes after the quote. What do? I set you up for the quote. You know what's coming. Here it is. Now what? I have to do 2 things. I want to deal with the specifics in the quote. I don't want to just paste over it or just rush past it. Look at the actual details inside the quote. And secondly, I'm going to argue for the relevance or importance of this quote. If the quote is doing more than just repeating the topic sentence point with different language, which it should, if it's offering new information, I want to talk about why is that new information relevant? Why is it in this in my paragraph at all? So here, why is this good evidence? I think the key to this is the authenticity of the study and this idea that if that we're talking about legalizing marijuana, so I think it's not hard to say that making it legal would lead to more use than we currently have. And then, and again, we're talking about over a period of time too. We're talking over a period of time that people are young now, as they become adults, are going to have some memory loss. And I think that's where I'm going to I'll discuss that because I think that is the most important thing I'm getting from this quote. It does come down to thinking about the quote. You do have to kind of think about the quote. So I'm going to call this my reconnection discussion. And there is no sentence length or number that I'm shooting for here. I just want to make sure that I get the most out of this quote that I can get out of it. What do I want to get out of this quote? I want to talk about why it's important. So, all right, I'm going to say something like, if marijuana becomes legal on a national level, it's reasonable to assume that usage, I'll just say usage, I already said usage, that marijuana use will certainly increase and most likely increase among young users. All right. Over the study shows, not who shows that over a period of time, young people could well grow into memory impaired adults. Young people who habitually smoke could well grow into memory impaired adults. This result will quite possibly. I'm trying to say something about what are we going to do when we got all these memory impaired adults? Like I'm just trying to indicate that's not good. Just to finish off this thought. So let me do it again. If marijuana becomes legal on a national level, it's reasonable to assume marijuana use will certainly increase, most likely increase among young users. The study shows over a period of time, young people who habitually smoke could well grow into memory impaired adults. This result will quite possibly affect, will quite possibly have a negative effect on several aspects of everyday life in a future America. That's not great, but it's not bad. And I think in terms of the sense of you've got it kind of you have the quote integrated. It works out right. I think that I could do a better job maybe arguing why this quote is important. Let me eliminate all these little topic sentences or the little topics I gave you, and put this into one paragraph so you can see how it's going to look if I actually put it in my writing. I'll dump this. All right, and we go here. Okay, there it is. There's a topic sentence and one hamburger. Done. I got topic sentence, setup sentence, quote, which is a couple sentences, and then I discussed the quote a little bit. My main goal in this was to make sure that you understand the quote is a piece of evidence here, and I'm not just repeating myself. Now, this paragraph will go on. The next sentence will do something to lead me into the next quote, something to validate the next quote, something to let me know what the next quote is going to be. It's going to start some way like, not only does marijuana affect long-term memory, marijuana lead to long-term memory loss in some studies, but and I might go maybe to some short-term memory loss evidence as well, and I'm going to get into that. I'm just transitioning between the two. So there it is. Okay, what you've seen here is me basically try to show you how one support quote could be integrated with its topic sentence. It's a process that this is a whole thing that's going to take you time, practice, some revision, but that's basically what you're shooting for each time. Hamburger those quotes. All right, I put the rest of this. There's a written example as well on this page. Keep going.